Aloha headsets, Frank here, and it is review time. Now, today's game is not just another PlayStation VR title. No, it is truly another world. Sure, Bethesda's Skyrim has seen a release on nearly every console for the past few years, but for the first time, you can become truly immersed in this magical realm. Now, after 10 years of shouting, looting, and dragon slaying, is it truly worth another trip into Bleak Falls Barrow? I sure do think so, but I'm going to leave that up for you to decide. Now, full disclosure, I did receive a review copy from the wonderful people at Bethesda, but Frank's opinion cannot be purchased. Now, on with the show. Alright, story. Now, this is a bit old hat, so we won't really go into too much detail, but for those of you wondering if it's all there, the answer is yes. Tale of the Dragonborn has been lovingly ported over to the PlayStation VR with the inclusion of all 3 DLCs, just no mod support. Now, the story is in no way bad, but it more serves as a guide for how to approach the game. Doing quests is great fun, but the real enjoyment comes from exploring everything this gigantic world has to offer. I mean, I think we all know the story by now, but for those of you new to the series, you're gonna love it. Audio. I was a little let down with the audio. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad. It's just not spatial audio. I love the sound of magic bursting from my hands, but the constant sound of my sword swinging every time I move my controller got a bit annoying after a while. The audio doesn't hurt your overall experience, and most of you probably won't even notice it, but had they implemented some sort of proximity-based level changes, it would have gone a long way to creating that ultimate sense of immersion. Visuals. So the main question I kept getting while playing Skyrim was, how does it look? Now, I've never been a big graphics snob, but I do understand that a certain level of consistency does make a big deal for some gamers' overall experience. That being said, it runs pretty darn smooth on a PS4 Pro. There were, of course, moments where there was too much movement on screen and frames seemed to drop, but in general, I was pleasantly surprised with how well this gigantic world runs in VR. There were a lot of times where the NPCs seemed to pop around, but I was really nothing that pulled me out of it. I still think it looks much better than the original release, but not quite as clean as the remaster. Playing on the OG PS4 was a little rougher. The game still runs very smoothly, but you can definitely notice a difference in the resolution. Everything is just a bit blurry, and the tearing is much more noticeable when you move the camera quickly. Luckily, I had no issue navigating the menus or reading text, but if you've been considering an upgrade, now might be the best time. I mean, it really is a much more polished experience on the Pro. Gameplay. This is Skyrim in VR. No magic tricks, no invisible walls. The entire kingdom is within reach. Now, mechanics-wise, we don't delve too deep considering nothing has changed, so we will mostly discuss the new controller options. You can play with either PS Move or DualShock 4, and both offer advantages and disadvantages to the general experience. Take, for example, smooth turning. On the DualShock 4, it is available, but on the Move controller, it is not. Personally, I prefer using the Move controllers. Maybe it's just me. Having the feeling of hand presence in VR makes a huge difference when it comes to immersion. Don't get me wrong, taking a seat and hopping into the world of Skyrim with your controller in hands is great, and thankfully it uses where you're looking as the crosshair, but being able to aim a spell with one hand and smash an elf in the face with a mace in your other is far more compelling to me. The Move controllers truly are the biggest change to the general gameplay. You no longer have to wait on an attack animation, just slice or shoot to your heart's content. The controllers also offer both free motion and teleportation, but I don't really suggest the teleport movement. It hurts the game's pacing and just kind of pulls you out of the general experience. For those of you worried about getting sick with free movement, at least try it. You're really missing out if you don't. They did a great job mapping controls, and you only have to press the move button on your offhand and aim the wand to move in any direction. Works like a charm. Getting around in the world of Skyrim VR works very well. Whether you're walking, running, horseback, or fast traveling, the system and menus function perfectly, and the load screens, although not in VR, are extremely quick. I love the gameplay, but I've always been a big Elder Scrolls fan, so I might be a little biased. Regardless, Bethesda did an amazing job bringing their baby over to PlayStation VR. There truly is nothing like Skyrim right now in the world of VR games. And that feeling of seeing a far-off mountain and slowly working your way there still blows me away to this day. Issues. So, as always, it's never all sunshine and rainbows in the world of game development, and Skyrim VR does have its flaws, but thankfully I really didn't find anything game-breaking. The biggest thing I ran into was, after getting off my horse, if I had a spell in one hand, it wouldn't work. Eventually it would come back, but I did have a few unnecessary deaths because of it. Also, when looking at books, sometimes the entire screen would go black all around the book, and other times I could still see the environment. Like I said, nothing big, but issues regardless. There were times when I looked away from NPCs and back to them quickly, and there would be a few frames dropped on the way back, but nothing that hurt my head or caused any kind of motion sickness. Finally, when I first started playing, my hands got a little messed up, but after giving my controllers a little shake and moving it behind my back and in front of me again, everything was okay. Now, I'm sure that's not everything, and there were plenty of times I saw textures pop in, but that's game. Although, if you run into anything while playing, please let us know. Bethesda is listening. They already said the first update will include a patch for smooth camera turning with the Move controllers. Sickness. Okay, so for the first time, we finally have a VR game that could easily eat up hundreds of hours, but is it possible to spend that much time in a headset? I sure do think so. Now, I'm not a stranger to VR marathons, and typically the only issue I have is being physically tired. My eyes never hurt, I never get any weird headaches, and I am very prone to headaches. And other than maybe a few extra vivid dreams, I've never had a single issue. Bethesda also did a great job of implementing a bunch of comfort options. So, if something makes you nauseous, first off, don't power through it. Take a little break, play around with the settings. Sometimes it just takes a little getting used to and figuring out what works for you. Setup. Alright, so knowing Skyrim VR may be your first time gaming on PSVR, it may be a good time to note a proper setup for the best experience possible. First up, make sure there's nothing reflective or any lights on the wall behind you. This is probably the biggest issue people run into at the start. And don't forget, you don't have to be plugged into a TV. Find a space that works best. Now, you want the camera to be roughly 5 feet from where you plan on centering your play space, and you want it to be eye level with a slight tilt downward for when you virtually reach on tables. If you don't have a spot to place it, I suggest using a tripod. That's what I always use. Finally, when you're playing, always remember that the compass and menu is tethered to where your camera is located in a room. So, if you ever start losing tracking, just look down and recenter yourself. Also, I must applaud Bethesda on this feature. It is the most unintrusive way I've seen used of reorienting yourself in-game. Bravo and brava. Value. Now, Skyrim VR is one of the few full-price VR games, but it wasn't just an in-house port. They brought in some of the top VR minds from Escalation Studios to ensure that every system in the game remained intact. Like I said earlier, this truly is Skyrim in virtual reality. Sure, you may have played through a dozen times by now, but in the words of Jimi Hendrix, have you ever been experienced? Verdict. The amount of times my jaws drop just from taking in the surroundings is a testament enough to the power of this title. For the first time ever, we have an entire world to explore in VR. If that doesn't sell you, I'm not sure what will. Maybe you see this as another way for Bethesda to just resell a Skyrim, and you're not wrong, but in a time where very few major studios are taking a chance of VR, I'm humbled at the dedication that went into making this game perfect. Sure, the controls can take a little getting used to, and it doesn't quite look up to par with what most 2017 releases, but what it lacks in polish, it makes up for in content. I mean, it's Skyrim in friggin' virtual reality. I mean, come on. Nah.